So, my guest today is Carmen Gillfillan, who is going to be talking on the subject of tapping for well-being, health and well-being, in fact. So, welcome, Carmen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Tania.
Ah, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. So, this is an immense topic. So, I think I better pull it right back then. So, I think the first question is, Carmen, can you tell us a little bit about you? Yeah, because
Yeah.
you work in this field, and you know, give us a bit of your history, where you come from, as in the field.
Yeah. I set up my practice in 2006. I started off as a life coach.
Hmm.
And what I found was that people were coming to me for life coaching
Mm.
and they were setting goals and not achieving them. So they were going away and they were saying, I'm gonna put this in place, I'm gonna put that in place. And then they would come back to the session a week later or 2 weeks later and nothing's happened.
Yeah.
And this was a pattern that I noticed with quite a few of my clients in my coaching days, just pure life coaching. And I realized that something was going on an emotional level underneath. And
Mm.
either they didn't know about it or they knew about it and they weren't telling me about it. And so at that time, I knew of this issue, but I didn't really know how to tackle it. And I was a Reiki practitioner around about the same time. I trained in Reiki in around about 2006. At the same time I set up my practice.
Mm.
And then a couple of years later, after I'd been incorporating Reiki and finding that Reiki was helping clients to a certain extent with their emotional issues, two therapist friends of mine told me independently of each other, roughly at the same time, about EFT. And so I thought, well, this is not an accident. I've got to look into EFT. And so this is what I did. And I started using it on myself in 2009 after doing a little bit of research into it, and thinking, well, this looks quite interesting. Started using it on myself. And I had been going through, or I'd been carrying a lot of stuff from my childhood.
Mm.
And I realized that some of it was being shifted with the tapping, with the EFT. And I realized that, yeah, there's definitely something in this, because I didn't realize just how much stuff I was carrying from my school days until I started working with EFT, and started, tapping on some of the stuff that was coming up for me. And as you know, Tanya, as soon as you start tapping on certain things, other stuff comes to the surface, the deeper stuff comes to the surface. And so I actually managed to clear a lot of stuff from my childhood. And what I actually realized accidentally was that I felt better.
Hmm.
I actually felt better in myself. I felt lighter, and I just felt better, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I thought, oh, okay. So obviously there's something in this. It's not just about getting rid of stressors from your past and stuff that you're carrying currently.
Hmm.
It's also about your sense of well-being, yeah, and your energy, obviously. And that started me down the path of looking at of health and well-being. And I've always been interested in health and well-being. I used to be a distributor for a nutritional supplements company back in the day, and that was amazing, helping people overcome different aspects of their health through supplementation. And so I was always interested in it. And what I found was that when I was looking into it, the same themes kept coming up. So it was like, get more sleep, drink more water, move more, look at your diet. So those four things were coming up. And then I realized that not many people were talking about this idea of energy healing. And so I incorporated that into what I was doing. So I was doing life coaching, I was doing Reiki, I was doing tapping, because in the meantime, I trained in it in 2012 to level 2. So I incorporated the tapping as well. And then I realized that those those letters spelt the word Sweden. So I had this acronym of Sweden on my wall: sleep, water, energy healing, diet, exercise, and nutrition, on my wall for a few years. And then gradually, I developed a workshop around it. And then that extended into a 3-week and a 6-week course. And then eventually it became a 12-week coaching program. So my main things that I do are EFT. That's kind of the bedrock of what I do. Mm-hmm. And so I work with people around trauma, but I also incorporate this health and well-being element that's based on this Sweden model. So obviously the tapping is a really, really important part of that program that I offer.
And thank you for that. I'm going to pull this right back, because I think you've given them all the information in one go. Let's break it down. Let's
sure.
the smaller little pieces of
sure.
The interesting thing you said at the very beginning, you were doing a coaching model, and coaching's fabulous, but what you have is, and that's exactly what I've always noticed, is people will set a goal, and then their unconscious will come in and say, all right, no, let's hold you back on that. And so you're always fighting your underlying program if you just try and work with the conscious mind, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So really, you come to the conclusion you needed something to clear that unconscious and get the people fully in alignment.
Exactly.
I've seen that kind of journey many a time before. The many people who've come in with coaching. Work with clients, and the clients have this big procrastination, and so they're always fighting that unconscious stuff. And as you say, you now use EFT to deal with that, because that's a programming from early life, isn't it? Really,
it is definitely a programming from early life, and we don't realize. And I saw this time and time again with my clients. They didn't realize there was this internal kind of dilemma going on. And I've just got one client in particular in mind, and he really wanted to achieve certain goals, and he would take one step forward, and it would be 2 or 3 back. And so before I knew about EFT, before I knew about this inner dilemma, I could see this. But I thought there's another level there. There's something else that I need to be doing with my clients that stops this kind of internal battle going on. And I knew that it was something that was at a deeper level. I just wasn't aware that it was at an energetic level. And so when I trained in EFT, that was kind of like a revelation to me. Because I then realized what was going on for my clients, and also what was going on for myself. So I kind of understood what you were talking about in terms of that programming from childhood, and realizing that the root of some of our health issues can go way back to when we were 2, when we were 3, and even I remember somebody saying years ago that if you're a toddler and you look left and you look right and you don't see your parents, that's a mini trauma for that 2 or 3-year-old. Now that could stay in your system. Your parents might just be quietly standing behind you, but you don't know that. And it's like, where are my parents? And that's a mini trauma for that toddler. So all these little things that we as adults don't necessarily think twice about, they're all mini traumas for us as toddlers and as babies and as children. And if we don't learn over the years how to process those little mini traumas, they can stay in our energy system for years. And
that's a really good point you bring up, because people, they think of, like you said, looking right and left, and a little child not seeing a parent, but that parent is so important for them, for their safety.
That's right.
A second to a child can feel like hours.
Exactly.
They left me alone.
How
long was that? Probably about 2 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah, but it can have big impact, can't it? And this
definitely.
early life programming is, well, early life experiences can have big impact. Well, I was just going to say as well, people always, when they think of trauma, think of the ballistic stuff. Yeah. They think
Yes.
it's got to be this
Yeah.
big stuff.
Exactly.
But they
Exactly.
dismiss stuff like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do. And like you say, for a toddler, something that we think, oh, it was only for 2 minutes. For them, it might as well be a day. It
Yeah.
might as well be a week.
Yeah.
It's exaggerated at that time. And you will know that we absorb everything subconsciously as toddlers, because we haven't yet developed the wherewithal to reason. We haven't developed that reasoning brain, that prefrontal cortex. It's not quite developed yet. So we absorb things. We absorb everything. Absorb everything, and it stays there, and it stays there. And as I say, if it's not processed, then something that happened at 2, it's still affecting you at 52. And
absolutely.
So when you've been diagnosed with something that might be life-threatening, and you don't know the root cause of it, it could be something that happened when you were 2, that or 3 or 4, that you consciously don't remember.
Yeah.
But your subconscious does.
Oh, always
your
does.
subconscious knows.
It can even go deeper, can't it? We don't have the best birthing processes, do we really?
No.
In alignment with nature, so it can be highly traumatic,
Yeah, definitely. And also, you're being carried in someone else's womb for 9 months. It's your mother's womb, but it's another entity, it's another person who is carrying you. And whatever they're going through, you're going to absorb that. Whatever trauma that they're going through, even if it's something that is in the relationship that is not working for them, you're going to pick up on that in the womb energetically, and you're going to carry that into the world. And for those of your listeners who are aware of what is happening ancestrally, some of the stuff we bring through energetically from our ancestors, in the same way that we've got our grandfather's eyes, or our grandmother's nose, or our great grandfather's hair, or something. We inherit their energy coming through. So we've got our stuff, we've got our parents' stuff, we've got our ancestor stuff.
Oh no. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that makes absolute sense from a survival perspective, doesn't it? Because otherwise, exactly. If one generation of the family experienced that, and that information is not passed on to the next, it's like, we're doomed to repeat. Doomed to repeat.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And I don't think people always understand it's not even complex. When you think of survival, it makes absolute sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's interesting you say that we repeat things over and over again, because that is what happens. And that's why EFT and energy healing generally is so important, because it's an opportunity for us to then make those changes and break those patterns and heal. So we're not just healing for ourselves. We can heal for our parents. Our parents might have been long gone, but we can still heal ourselves, and we can heal for them as well on their behalf, and going backwards in time. So we don't realize how powerful we are.
Yeah, and just coming back to that statement, we can heal for them. There is a theory that all time really is now. Yeah. Isn't there?
Yes.
And I was reading a Greg Braden. I mean, Greg Braden's a fantastic writer, isn't he?
Braden,
I was reading one of his quotes, and it stated exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Basically, we heal us, we heal all.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
that's
was I
right.
going to say? I was saying, EFT is just all of those things that we kind of inherit and all of those things we carry forward in life. They're all to do with unprocessed emotion, aren't they, really?
Yeah,
The trauma that we
that's
go
right.
through. You're using EFT to help the body process
Mm.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we don't realize that a lot of what we go through on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
it stays with us energetically. It's all energy. It is
Mm-hmm.
all energy. It's all energy and vibration.
Yeah.
And so something that we see as something quite small, maybe somebody said something to us when we were at school, you know.
Mm.
And I mean, I think of my school days, and I still think of certain things that my so-called friends said to me when I was at school, and I'm kind of thinking, you know, why did she say that? Why did he say, and so we remember these things, and we remember not only the words that were said, but the way in which they were said. And so that language, what we're hearing, that's a vibration.
Mm.
That's a vibration that we are picking up on. Yeah. And that's going to have an impact on us energetically, and then eventually physically. So when we,
Yes.
when we get the backache, when we get the headache, and when we get the digestive issues,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the root of all of that is something emotional. The root of all of that could have been something that your teacher told you when you were at school. It
Well,
could have been something your so-called friends said to you when you were at school.
Well, the teachers are very powerful. Well, they don't always necessarily realize this, but they're
Mm,
powerful people because they're
they are.
authority figures to children.
That's right.
If an authority figure says you're rubbish,
Yes. Yeah,
a child can take that on board as if it's about them personally, that who
that's
they
right.
are is rubbish.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So I did
exactly.
find it fascinating the fact that you said when you come in, you hadn't realized yourself what you were carrying. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and what's so interesting, you see, when I came into this profession, I knew I'd had certain issues. I used to be very frightened of public speaking, and
Mm,
but equally confident. Because you can be triggered by something. You can be a very confident person. So I had to clear that, obviously. But
mm.
I was thinking I got no problems.
No, no, nothing at all. I don't need to tap.
As you come in this profession, you go, oh gosh, I've got so many. I've had this trauma, that trauma. And,
Yeah,
but we also have the tools to clear it, don't we? So I think
yeah,
you had that eye-opening experience as well. Mhm.
yeah, definitely. And when I was training, when I was doing my EFT levels 1 and 2, and
Mhm.
obviously, we've done EFT 3 together.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I remember having some very deep sessions that took me back again, coming back to this idea of going back to your childhood, going back to
Mhm.
when you were a toddler. Um, and things that I remembered, I remember having one really, really deep session
Mhm.
over the weekend. It was a weekend course. It wasn't my levels 1 and 2, but it was a weekend course.
Mhm.
And I just remember floating home. I
Yeah.
literally floated home because I felt so light,
Mm.
so energetically light. And it was a revelation how much I had been carrying. So
Yeah.
it really, I mean, when you have a really deep session of EFT, a lot of people describe it as having like a really deep massage, a deep tissue
Mm.
massage, or the equivalent of that. And I found that particular day, and on other occasions since then, and quite a few of my clients have had the same, have said the same thing. It is like having a really deep massage, a
Yeah.
really deep tissue massage.
Yeah.
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 So it's amazing how much we're carrying.
Yeah. I mean, we don't realize how much we're carrying, but what you're talking about, how can a body shift from where they start off to there? Change in vibration, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And if you think of certain emotions like joy, it feels so much lighter to us when we get to the
Mm,
emotion of joy than
yes.
depression, which feels a very heavy emotion
Yes.
on the body.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, they do say, isn't it, if you're depressed and sad, that every cell in your body is depressed and sad.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, that's right.
equally, yeah, equally when you feel joy,
Yeah,
every cell in your body
your
is
body.
feeling, yeah, feeling
Yeah,
that vibration.
that's right. That's right.
So you're working with trauma,
Mm.
and I'll just point out to everyone who is listening here, everyone's experienced trauma.
Yeah,
When you think
that's
in
right.
context that little things can cause it, yeah. And
Mm.
but equally, you work in other areas with your Sweden program.
Yeah.
You're looking at the other factors as well that can contribute to health and well-being. So take
Mm.
us through the different things you said: sleep, you said water. Which
Yeah.
of them do you feel is the most important, or do you think they've all got equal importance?
I think they're all important. I
Mhm.
think from my own experience, personally and with my clients, sleep is a massive one.
Mm.
And I would say diet is a
Yeah.
massive one.
Mhm.
Yeah. They are all important. I would say those three, so sleep and energy healing and diet are massive.
Mm.
Um, and we don't realize if we don't sleep well, we don't realize the knock-on effect that that has to our day and our week. I mean, if you think about it, if you just lose 1 hour of sleep over a week, you've lost the equivalent of a whole night's sleep by the end of that week. And that has a knock-on effect to how you function physically, how you function mentally. It has an effect on your judgment. It has an effect on how you eat. So then that links into your diet.
Mm.
Because of the way the brain works, if you don't get enough sleep, the next day you will get to a stage in the day where you're craving comfort foods. So
Mm.
so you're craving things that don't necessarily fill you up, but that feel good to eat. Because again, you're not repaired. One of the things that sleep does is it repairs the body overnight,
Mm.
and it moves short-term memories into your long-term the long-term memory part of your brain. Yeah. And so if you don't get enough what they call REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement, it's called rapid eye movement sleep, then that transition is either incomplete or doesn't take place at all. And when we sleep, the main time that we are repairing our body is between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
So you can imagine that, say, if you've got people that are night owls and they don't get to bed till like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, their bodies aren't repairing. Their bodies are not repairing themselves. And so you will feel it, if not the next day, then you will feel it the day after. And
Mm.
so, getting your 8 hours of sleep a night it's not just a nice thing. It really does have short, medium, and long-term health implications. So I would say sleep is a massive one.
So
Yeah.
just what, you said 10 o'clock is the optimum time for repair. So what time really should people go to bed?
Ideally, ideally probably around 9 o'clock, so that by 10 o'clock
Yeah.
you're actually asleep.
Hmm.
And the issue that we have in the 21st century is that we have artificial light, don't we?
Mm.
So it doesn't matter whether it's light outside, dark outside. If we want to carry on working, we'll just switch a light on. We'll just switch an artificial light on, and we'll just carry on working into the early hours. Whereas early man had sunlight and moonlight. So obviously when the
Yeah.
sun went down, they couldn't see anything. So that was an indication that they needed to go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that now. So, that's one thing. Another thing is that sometimes people work shifts.
Oh, yeah.
So some people are actually working throughout the night.
Mm.
Yeah. And they finish work when the sun comes up. So their what we call their circadian rhythm is almost upside down. So they're
Mm.
sleeping in the day and they're working at night. So that can have a huge effect on your body clock and your rhythm and how you function as well. And I know people from personal experience who have either done shift work, or they've been in the forces where they've gone to sleep at all hours, or they've been in charge of a troop of soldiers, for example. So they've never really slept because they've had to always be on their guard, and it affects their sleep later on in their lives, which then affects their health. So sleep is huge.
Yeah. And so what would you say if you were to give a tip, or at least one or two tips about improving the quality of your sleep, what you would need to do?
I would say it would be really good to change when you go to bed. If you are somebody who's a night owl and you tend to go to bed in the early hours of the morning, let's say, knock it back by half an hour. So if you go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, tonight go to bed at 12:30. Do that for a while and then knock it back to midnight. And then keep doing that until you get as close to, say, 10 o'clock as possible. The reason why I'm saying 10 o'clock is that for a lot of people, 9 o'clock is just too early for them to go to bed. But try and knock it back to as close to 10 o'clock as possible, so that you're getting as much of that repair time as possible between the hours of 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning. So that if you only ever slept 4 hours, that you're sleeping during that kind of repair time.
Yeah.
But you sleep in waves anyway, so you oscillate between really deep sleep, where your body is repairing it, where your body is repairing itself, out into rapid eye movement sleep, where you, as I say, you've got that memory transition going on back into deep sleep, back out into REM sleep. So you also need, your kind of 8 hours, so that you can go through the optimum number of 90-minute cycles, because those cycles are roughly in 90 minutes. So I would say do that, number one. And number two, I would say just get rid of all your gadgets out of your bedroom. Don't have your mobile phone in your room. Have it, if you have to have it on charge, have it on charge in another room. Don't have a TV in your room, because you'll be watching it. And the reason why I'm saying that is because your bedroom should really be your sanctuary. Yeah. So, make sure that your bedroom is where you go to relax and sleep.
Yeah.
Whereas what some people tend to do is that they tend to work. They tend to take their work, get into bed, work in bed. They've got all the gadgets around them, and then the brain doesn't know what the bedroom is for, doesn't know what the bed is for. They think it's a workstation. So it's giving the brain a really clear message that when you go into the bedroom, right, I'm going in to relax and rest and sleep.
Yeah, because the brain, it works by association, isn't it? It links.
That's right.
Things. So you go to the bedroom, if it links sleep and rest with that place, then it's going to be helping you to get to the place you need and want to go. I always think of the sleep as like a washing machine cycle myself.
I know exactly what you mean. Yes. Yeah.
You hear it clanking away sometimes on one part of the cycle, then it changes, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
But pulling that back to water then, because you've covered sleep, which is key, is important. And what about water then? What would you say about that?
I would say that water does more for the body than you actually think it does. Yeah, obviously it hydrates you, but it's also good for your limbs. It allows you to feel a lot more flexible in terms of your limbs. It flushes out toxins out of your body. It flushes through your whole system, flushes through your vital organs, and it also increases the electrical activity in your brain. So there's a lot that water does, and we don't realize when we're dehydrated. We just don't realize that some of the times when maybe we're confused, we're making bad judgments, or we can't work things out very well. It could just be that we're dehydrated.
Mm. And a lot of people who maybe, or some people who have eating issues, sometimes it's really dehydration, isn't it, really? You know, because they grab for the food rather than the water.
Yeah.
You know. By the way, this is, although it's in a gin glass, it is actually water.
I wasn't going to say anything, Tanya. Wasn't going to say anything.
You were probably thinking it. I'm making sure that I'm stopping that bad thinking.
No, I had no doubts whatsoever that that's water.
Yeah. Well, I had a choice, you see. I either put it in a cup, and that's not glamorous, is it? Or put it in this lovely
Well, you know, some of us don't really mind.
Well, I see. I do have a cup of tea here. So it's actually got a bit of lipstick on this glass, but
oh right, okay, yeah.
And that one, well, that one there is my brother-in-law gave me that. That's his company, you see. So I kind
of, okay. Oh, a bit of product placement there.
Yeah, a little personal thing. But coming back, you know, like you said, you know, the body's very electrical, and water is key to that. And someone, I think it's Dr. Tom Cohen. I love that guy, brilliant scientist, brilliant doctor. But one of the things he said, he obviously he's done medical training, and he says when you work with people and they bleed, and they're in the medical room, no one sees the water spill out of a person, and yet we're something like 70% water, aren't we? Yeah. He said, I've never seen pools of water around people. And that's because it's in more of a different formats in our body.
That's right.
So key to our electrical charge.
It is.
And, I think when you truly understand it, that just the importance of this, keeping your electrical systems functioning properly.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the and you've got different types of water as well. And one of the types of water that they say that if you can is to drink structured water.
Yeah.
Because it's more in line with how the water in your cells is formatted. It's more of a linear format rather than more of a random format. Yeah. So that's something else to consider. So there's being hydrated, and then there's being super hydrated as well. And there's all sorts of things like water fasts as well, which are quite interesting.
Coming over to structured water, where's the best place to get structured water?
Well, if you can, you know, get it from, if you're lucky enough to live near a spring, that is the best place, the best place to get structured water, because it is natural, because as the water flows over the rocks and down, it automatically becomes structured, and you just catch it in whatever vessel you want to catch it in, and you've got structured water there. Yeah. If you have to buy it, then you have to buy it, but ideally getting it from nature is the best way to get it. But even if you had like a water filter, so that you're not drinking tap water that contains different contaminants, then at least that's something, because the water is some of the contaminants are being filtered out of the water. So even just getting a water filter so you can filter your water is something. Yeah. But it is about, you know, drinking sufficient water so that your body is functioning in the way that it should be functioning, especially the brain. So if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling, I mean, coming back to kind of tips, if you're feeling tired and you're feeling sluggish in the day, then, you know, fill up a glass of water and just have that. If you're still feeling sluggish, you know, drink another glass of water, and just keep drinking until you start to feel that hydration, you start to feel the energy and that electrical activity coming back into the body.
Yeah, and I would say that should probably be people's first choice. I mean, you have to know that, don't you, really? You know, water can make a big difference. But come back then. We've talked about EFT. We've talked about sleep. We've talked about water. I think the other one is diet.
Diet and nutrition. They go together. And I think one of the first things to say about diet is, well, one of my pet subjects is about the combinations of foods that we eat. Because we have a lot of people out there that have a lot of gut issues. And sometimes, big disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not medically qualified in any way, shape, or form. I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm a health enthusiast. Having said that, a lot of clients that I've come across have gut issues. And one of the things that I've realized is that people are not always aware of how to eat different foods. Like, for example, if you're eating fruit, a lot of people have fruit as a dessert. Now, if you think about it, you've probably had a starter, you've probably had a main meal, and then they're digesting, and then you have fruit as a dessert. Now, fruit digests faster than 9 times out of 10 than the meal that you've had. So you're having this fruit on top of the meal, and it's trying to digest faster than the food. So it's about being mindful of the order in which you eat. So ideally, you want to have the fruit first. It sounds really strange, but you can have the fruit first before you have your meal. So the fruit almost acts as a kind of like a prebiotic, if you like, within your system. And then that can digest nicely. And then you've got the food that comes afterwards, and that can digest at the rate that it needs to digest. But a lot of us do it the other way around. And if you go to a restaurant, one of the things that they will offer you as a dessert is fruit. Yeah. So I personally tend not to have fruit at the end of a meal because of that. So ideally, if it's fruit, if it's fast fermenting fruit, like, for example, your berries or, apples, oranges, those kinds of fruit, they're what we call fast fermenting. They really ought to be eaten on their own. So if you've had a meal and you then want to have some fruit after your meal, give it a couple of hours. Give it an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Yeah. And coming back to water, it's similar with water. A lot of people think that you drink while you're eating. Well, actually you don't, because there's a similar thing going on, that the water that you drink, or the fluid that you drink, is going to want to kind of go through your system faster than the food that you're eating. So ideally, if you have to drink while you're eating, just take tiny little sips. Or if you have to drink after you've eaten, directly after you've eaten, just take tiny little sips. Yeah. And all these things can contribute to having gut issues after you've eaten, or for a while after you've eaten. And if you just know the order in which to eat certain foods, then some of these issues can start to abate. Yeah. If you're having meat, just have veg with the meat, rather than having potatoes and a meat and veg. Just have the veg with the meat. And then you'll find that it's kinder on your digestive system than trying to have meat and, say, for example, potatoes and veg. So there's all these little things around diet that can help your digestive system in the short, medium, and long term.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think, there is a knowledge to be had here, isn't it, really? And I think we don't necessarily live in the most natural way these days, No. But yeah, so working in alignment.
Oh.
And you put all of these things together in a very cohesive program. And I think, when you're talking about, there's a lot to learn if you go and try and get that information yourself. But you've already been through this learning curve.
Yeah. And it's
Brought it all together. Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I say thank you, Carmen, for talking us through that. And yeah, thank you for joining me here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So I will hopefully speak with you soon. So thank you
You
very
will.
much there. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to find out more about my guest today, Carmen Gillfillan, and her health programs which utilize EFT and nutrition, please visit her website, which is www.stimulus.uk.com. I'll say that again. It's www.stimulus.uk.com.